The fifth round of the 2017 season sees the F1 circus arrive in Spain at the Circuit de Catalunya, following 4 races which have seen 4 different race winners so far this season. Whilst it's looking unlikely to see a 5th different driver to win this weekend, the fight between Ferrari and Mercedes was showing no signs of dying down. Both teams have brought upgrades to their cars this weekend, with Mercedes focusing on closing the pace advantage that Ferrari's chassis has had so far. But Ferrari themselves are wary of this and have chosen to further develop their chassis due to an upgraded power unit not being available until Canada. And thanks to the regulations now only allowing 4 internal combustion engines per season, the team have tried to make the units more durable, something which could favour them later on in the season. Elsewhere on the grid, Force India couldn't have hoped for a better start to the season, and they currently sit in 3rd in the Constructors' standings. It was a great battle between them and Red Bull last time out in Russia, but Red Bull have brought big upgrades to their car this weekend, with their team boss Christian Horner describing it as a B-spec car. Both drivers look comfortable in the car in Friday practice, so they'll be hoping for good results on Saturday and Sunday. So would Red Bull be joining the fight at the front, or would it be just a 4-way fight once more? Let's pass over to Matt to see what happened in qualifying.
The Circuit de Catalunya has been on the F1 calendar for many years now, and with the overtaking being notoriously difficult, qualifying around the circuit was as vital as ever. Looking at the bottom half of the grid first of all, and it was Fernando Alonso propping up the grid thanks to the yet another engine penalty for McLaren Honda. It's also been a poor start to the season for Sauber, who see their drivers line up in 18th and 19th. Their line ahead of Ericsson this time out. Carlos Sainz's poor form continued on Saturday and he could only manage 17th place on the grid. Lance Stroll and Kevin Magnussen would occupy row 8 and just ahead of them are Nico Hulkenberg and Stoffel Van Dorn. It was an impressive lap from the Belgian and it sees McLaren starting their highest grid position of the season so far. Rounding out the bottom half of the grid were Romain Grosjean in 12th and Felipe Massa in 11th. But both drivers were significantly ahead of their respective teammates. The sun was shining for Q3 and it was Lewis Hamilton that would be leading the pack away on Sunday after adding another pole position to his impressive career tally. The Ferrari drivers shouldn't be too disheartened however, with Sebastian Vettel just 1,000th of a second behind Hamilton, and his teammate Schumacher will start just behind him in P3. Valtteri Bottas was less than 2/10 of his teammate Hamilton, but had set for P4 in qualifying, just behind Schumacher. Daniel Ricciardo was best of the rest once again, just half a second off pole in 5th place and over 3/10 ahead of Verstappen. Looking at the rest of the top 10 now, you can see that it was an impressive session from both Toro Rosso drivers, especially Daniel Kvyat, who will line up in 8th. So with just 1.5 tenths separating the top 4, which one would prevail in Catalunya? Let's get into the race.
What's up guys, and welcome back to episode number 5 of the F1 2017 Schumi career. It's been about a week and a half since the last episode. I've had a lot of coursework due in at uni, but if you guys are happy to see this back, do leave a like down below, and if we manage to hit 80 likes on this video, I will release another one at the end of the week. But yeah, you heard in the qualifying report there from Matt, big thanks to him once again, that Schumacher could only manage P3 in qualifying, outdone by his teammate, something which hasn't happened too much this season, if at all in fact. He may have out-qualified in Bahrain. You guys probably know better than me. But yeah, today's race is shaping up to be a cracker. There was 1.5 tenths between the top 4 in qualifying. And there is going to be some different strategies at play. Yeah, you can go for the 2-stopper, possibly the 3-stopper. The 1-stopper would have been on to go on from mediums to hards, but nobody has gone for the medium tyres in qualifying. But now it is time to get into the racing. Less of the strategy, more of the racing, and it's lights out, and away we go here in Spain. And it's a little bit of a poor start from both of the Ferrari cars. The top 3 got away equally, but in 4th, Bottas has got a great start. He's there in the middle of the 3 cars at the front, and he's already overtaken Schumacher, but had a little bit of a collision there with Vettel and has dropped right back. So yeah, Vettel and Bottas came to blows, and then I think Schumacher sort of gave him a little bit of a tag, and now we've got Daniel Ricciardo momentarily up into P4, but Bottas does get back into 4th position, so we'll have to take a look at a replay there. The top 3, or in fact the top 5, are unchanged. But yeah, Schumacher very much under pressure there from Bottas. And had there not have been contact, I think Schumacher would have been down to 4th and Bottas up into a podium position. But yeah, we'll take a look at a replay now. So it was a fantastic start from Bottas. already ahead of Schumacher, and not even halfway down to turn 1. Then he gets level with Sebastian Vettel, and we'll have to see what happens here. And there was a little bit of a lockup. Yes, there was, just on the inside tyre, and I think that's what sort of slowed him down. I don't think there was actually any contact between Vettel and Bottas, but then Ricciardo gets a great run before he just runs out of room there on the outside. So yeah, Bottas does maintain P4, but showing that he does have some good pace, and he's going to have to use that to full effect now, because he has dropped back probably about 2 seconds behind Schumacher. So yeah, going back to the end of lap 1, back to the live action, we'll see exactly what is going on. So actually, the gap between Schumacher and Vettel and Schumacher and Bottas is pretty constant. So 1.1 ahead and 1.2 behind. But now as we go all the way on to lap 3, skipping a couple of laps into the race, you can see that it's still Hamilton from Vettel and then Schumacher. So there is now DRS active at the start of lap 4. Vettel is reasonably close, I think, and it looks like Bottas has actually dropped back a little bit, so he's not within DRS range, but the top 3 are all within a second of each other. It is looking like it is going to be a great battle between these 4 drivers once again. Daniel Ricciardo's good qualifying pace doesn't seem to have sort of transferred into race pace, at least at the moment, because he's dropped from the back of Valtteri Bottas, but 4 tenths now between Vettel and Schumacher. But the thing is, Vettel is within DRS range of Hamilton, so it's going to be difficult for Schumacher to pull an overtake at this stage of the race. Bottas also struggling to hang on to the tail of Schumacher, but of course we are only 4 laps into this Grand Prix. And yeah, the pit phase will probably start around lap 6 or 7, I would imagine. So yeah, keep an eye on that in the not too distant future. But yeah, Schumacher does have the DRS, but you can see just not managing to close up on Vettel in that middle sector. And coming on to lap 6 now, you can see again the gap maybe a little bit more up to Vettel. It's probably more like 8 tenths of a second now, but Schumacher does still have DRS, and we'll see exactly what the gap is. Yes, it's 9 tenths of a second, with Bottas, who's just sort of biding his time, is only 4 tenths behind Schumacher. But on lap 6, the team have in fact called Schumacher into the pits. Now, you may recall last time out in Russia, it was Vettel who was given priority on the pit stops, despite him being behind Schumacher on the track. But this time, maybe they're repaying Schumacher. They told him to come into the pits early. It came up with a strategy change. So yeah, they're fitting the medium tyres onto the car. And as you may have seen at the start of the race, it's looking like a 2-stopper for the Ferrari guys, going onto 2 sets of medium tyres. But this is awful. It looks as if Schumacher has come right into some traffic. There's loads of cars up ahead. There's a bit of a lock-up there. That is Esteban Ocon, who has been spun round by the looks of it. We'll have to take a look at a replay in a minute. But this is awful for Schumacher, who has got about 5 or 6 cars in front of him that he's going to have to clear. But yeah, Esteban Ocon was side by side with Daniel Kvyat, I believe, and just locks up and then has to stop to let everyone through. And there you can see Schumacher going through. So not his finest moment, Esteban Ocon. He's had a great season so far, but yeah, not looking too good for him at the moment, and may not even be able to score any points. But later on in lap 7, you can see that the race leader, Lewis Hamilton, is going to respond to Schumacher coming into the pit. So we'll have to keep an eye on him. Meanwhile, we can see Schumacher trying to clear these cars ahead, but he is losing a lot of time at the moment. He's currently behind Carlos Sainz, and he's just going to have to dive one up the inside. It's a lovely little move from Schumacher, but is it too little too late? As you can see, a few other cars coming into the pit lane. And yes, sure enough, that is Lewis Hamilton emerging from the pit box. And, well, you can't even see Schumacher anywhere in the distance. So that must be a good 5 or 6 second gap that Lewis Hamilton has managed to get on Schumacher. Maybe even more in one lap as well. That is quite astonishing. I mean, he was probably, what, a second and a half, maximum 2 seconds ahead of Schumacher at the end of lap 6. And now at the start of lap 8, as Schumacher goes down the inside of Magnussen, well, the gap is a lot more. And if you look on the minimap, I believe Hamilton is that first car that you can see right in the distance. So really not good on the strategy front from Ferrari. And Schumacher will be absolutely fuming, because, you know, he didn't get the greatest strategy in Russia, and he hasn't had, well, he's had the same bad luck in Spain. So, yeah, his teammate Vettel is actually carrying on for another lap on lap 8. But coming into the pits is Valtteri Bottas this time out, 1 lap longer than his teammate. So he comes out on the soft tyres just like Hamilton. So it looks like both of them have in fact committed to the 3-stopper. So it's not all bad for Schumacher, but of course their strategy will be quicker, and they've been released in some clear air because Bottas has managed to jump Schumacher in the pit phase, and this is just going from bad to worse for the 7-times world champion. He's sitting in a net P4 probably at the moment because his teammate there, Sebastian Vettel, hasn't pitted yet, but he's pulling over to the side and he's got a gearbox issue, I believe. That is awful luck for Sebastian Vettel, who grinds to a halt. And that is going to be bad for Ferrari in the constructors' standings. And the championship leader pulls off to the side of the road on lap 9 of this Grand Prix. And there you can see Lewis Hamilton assumes the race lead once more. Now, we've got Romain Grosjean in P2 at the moment. You may have been able to recall that the Haas drivers stayed out for longer in Russia. And it's the same here in Spain. And it's actually allowed Schumacher to close back up to Bottas. But that is awful, awful luck for the Ferrari team and for Sebastian Vettel. And now Schumacher will have to be wary of his gearbox, because I believe the wear isn't looking too good on the gearbox of Schumacher. So yeah, like I say, he's going to have to be careful for the rest of this race as Romain Grosjean there peels into the pit lane. So that releases Valtteri Bottas, who is of course on that soft compound of tyre. So yeah, one softer compound than the Ferrari of Schumacher, who is just going to have to try and stick on the tail of Bottas. He was in DRS range there, but just wasn't close enough to make a move. And I think it's pretty much expected that Bottas will sort of make a gap to Schumacher behind him. You know, like I say, he's got those softer tyres on. And you can see already he's just trying to get a bit of a gap. So we skip to the end of lap 12, and sure enough, Bottas is getting further into the distance, and the gap is 5 seconds now. So, wow, he's really put the hammer down, even just in 3 laps. So Schumacher's going to have to be careful. And let's have a look. Lap 14, it is up to 6.3 seconds. So yeah, the increments are getting smaller, but he's on average, he's probably about a second a lap quicker. So now we're on lap 15, nearly at the halfway stage of this Grand Prix. We're going to take a look at the running order. So in P1 at the moment, we have got that man, Lewis Hamilton, who is a good way ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas, and it looks like they're on the same strategy. I don't know, they might split it later on in the race. But P3 is Schumacher, and that is followed by Daniel Ricciardo, who... or is that Max Verstappen? Who couldn't quite tell. Actually, no, it was Max Verstappen who's actually got ahead of Ricciardo. So Ricciardo is struggling to fend off the Force India of Sergio Perez at the moment. So yeah, once again, a good solid performance from that Force India man. And then behind them, we have got Pierre Gasly, and that is one of the Haas cars of Romain Grosjean in P9. Rounding out the top 10 is the other Toro Rosso of Daniel Kvyat. So Gasly may have qualified behind Kvyat, but he has managed to get ahead of him in the race. And yeah, that is your top 10 for the moment. Felipe Massa, I believe, also in there. Didn't cover him. But now the more important battle is up at the front. So coming into the pit lane, once again for a soft compound of tyre, is Lewis Hamilton. So once again, he's going to be aggressive and go for the mediums right at the end of the race. His teammate Valtteri Bottas is leading this race now, and he will surely be coming into the pit lane relatively soon. But in P2 now is Michael Schumacher. And the top 3 are just all over the place at the moment, I think it's fair to say. They're all on different strategies by the looks of it. And yeah, it's just complete muddle at the moment. So lap 16, we have now got Valtteri Bottas coming into the pit lane. So will he go onto the soft tyres just like his teammate, or will it be the mediums? No, it's the hard tyres. So it looks like he is going to be going to the end. He's going for a 2-stop strategy, but he is going to be quite slow on those hard tyres. Now, we haven't seen anybody on those all weekend, but for this second half of the race, it looks like Valtteri Bottas is going to go for the hard compound of tyres. So, wow, he has got a lead, of course, over Michael Schumacher of around 6 or 7 seconds. But, yeah, Schumacher is now in the lead of this race, so he's 3.2 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton. But, of course, Hamilton is on those soft tyres, and both of them have still got to stop one more time in this Grand Prix. So this is Hamilton's chance to really put the hammer down. But on lap 19, you may be able to see on the mini-map just how far behind Lewis Hamilton is. And on Schumacher's team radio, the engineer came over, Jeff came over to say that Hamilton has actually run into some more issues. Now, it's been the case so far this season already that Hamilton has had deployment issues, and it looks as if he has run into the same sort of luck once again. So yeah, Schumacher actually managed to extend the gap on his worn medium tyres, and decided to come into the pits on lap 20, start of lap 21. For the final pit stop of the afternoon, and once again it is a set of those medium tyres. And yeah, Valtteri Bottas goes ahead of him, as does Lewis Hamilton. Bottas doesn't have to stop again, Hamilton does. So now it is just about charging down Valtteri Bottas for probably the victory in this race, because yeah, Hamilton, if he continues to have issues, well, I don't think he'll be a threat later on in the race. But of course, if he does manage to sort out the deployment issues, then you never know. He may become a factor later on. But yeah, up into P3, or down into P3 is Schumacher. And yeah, this is going to be the worst case scenario, is that he finishes P3 this afternoon, which you can't really complain at. But of course, he will want the victory. So now we're going to take a look at the gap up ahead. So it's 10 seconds to Hamilton, who is now in the pit lane, and 9 seconds to Bottas. So he's got 10 laps to close that 9-second gap. And going towards the end of lap 23, what is it down to? It's down to 7.7 seconds, so he's taken 1.3 seconds out of him that lap. Is it going to be the same again? It's down to 6.8, so only half a second that lap. But 7 seconds in 8 laps is looking as if it could be a possibility. Now, Lewis Hamilton is quite a way behind him. But now Marcus Ericsson is there, one of the back markers. And that's a big lockup for Schumacher, and he just can't navigate his way around this back marker. And that could really, really cost him by the looks of it. And yeah, he just can't get past Ericsson. Where are the blue flags? He's just going to have to dive one down the inside, and that is looking as if it could cost him the race victory this afternoon. He's probably lost a second behind that back marker, and you can't expect to win a race if you're losing that amount of time. And yes, the gap is up to 6.7 seconds. As Lewis Hamilton puts in the fastest lap of the race. He's now only 4.6 seconds behind Schumacher. And come at lap 29, I believe that gap has come down even further. And by now, Schumacher has just admitted defeat, I think, on the victory, because the gap has sort of stayed around 6.5, 7 seconds. And now it's just about maintaining P2. Hamilton is less than 2 seconds behind now, I believe. And it looks as if Schumacher has got to navigate Pascal Wehrlein, the Mercedes young driver, in order to get past him. So he's come up to him in the middle sector as well, which is probably the worst place on the track to actually, you know, be able to lap a car. But he does manage to get past Wehrlein eventually on that DRS straight. And yes, it's 1.2 seconds back to Hamilton, who is on the fresher compound of tyres. So this is going to be an interesting battle. And come midway through lap 31, once again they're coming through the middle sector, you can see just how close Lewis Hamilton is to taking P2 from Schumacher. A little bit of a messy exit from Schumacher as well. Will Hamilton go for the move? No, he tries to look to the outside, but Schumacher just sort of closes the door on him there. And now as they run through this final sector, it'll be interesting to see the variety of lines. Yes, a very tight line from Hamilton just to try and get out of that turbulent air through this final sector. Of course, through that right-hander in Sector 3, it's so easy to get understeer. And now as they come through the final corner, once again, Hamilton getting out of that turbulent air through the final corner. But now he's going to try and pull out and overtake Michael Schumacher for P2. Will the Ferrari man be able to put up a defence at all? They are side by side now on the pit straight, and it looks as if Hamilton's got it. Yes, he has. And Schumacher tries to brake a little bit later and brave it around the outside, as he did so many times in Bahrain earlier on in the season. But it looks as if Hamilton has that P2 for the moment. And, wow, it's going to be a case of Schumacher trying to hold on to the tail of Hamilton, who is, of course, on those fresher tyres as well. And that is a big snap of oversteer for Schumacher there. And now as they go through this middle sector once again, there is Lance Stroll, I believe, is the back marker that they're coming up to lap. And Schumacher gets a big lockup. He is really struggling on these tyres now as he goes wide once again. It's just very, very messy. And he can't even turn through that right-hander onto the DRS straight. And it looks as if Schumacher has just lost this P2 now. But coming round the final corner on lap 33, the final lap of the race, Valtteri Bottas, a brilliant drive from him and a great strategy from Mercedes, sees him take his second victory of the season. It's P2 for Hamilton and a 1-2 finish for Mercedes. But coming round the final corner now is Michael Schumacher. It's P3 for him, a little bit of a disappointment, and just the 15 points this afternoon for Ferrari too. But of course it is a podium finish, it is where he started on the grid, so can't be too disheartened as it is 15 points towards that championship. But there is your race winner for this afternoon, Valtteri Bottas, 25 points on the board, and I believe he now takes the lead in the Drivers' Championship. Thoroughly deserving of that, as of course he is the first driver to win 2 races this season, and the 3 drivers up on the podium there. Of course, Sebastian Vettel will be disappointed not to be up there this afternoon. If his car hadn't have given up, then he could well be leading this Drivers' Championship, as he has done for the majority of this season so far. Of course, the season is young as of yet, and yeah, it's going to not do him good in the Drivers' Championship in the short term, but if he does carry on, I'm sure he will be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. But there you can see the full race results. Max Verstappen took P4, so a good afternoon for him. And, you know, he was on the 3-stopper as well. Sergio Perez took P5, and it was a disappointing afternoon for Daniel Ricciardo, who could only take P6. Romain Grosjean got some more good points for Haas to consolidate their place in 5th in the Constructors' standings. Looking further down the order, it was another double points finish for Toro Rosso, 8th and 9th for them, with Nico Hülkenberg taking the final points spot ahead of Esteban Ocon, who of course you saw have that spin earlier on in the race. Further down the grid, you can see that Massa and Vettel were the only 2 retirements from the Grand Prix, and Michael Schumacher stays in P2, but is still ahead, has managed to jump ahead of Sebastian Vettel, his teammate, in the drivers' standings. But it is Valtteri Bottas who is your new leader at the top of the standings. But yeah, 16 points separate the top 4. So if Bottas has a DNF next time out in Monaco, then it could be a whole different story. But still leading the Constructors' standings are Ferrari by 9 points over Mercedes, with Force India staying in P3. But guys, that is the end of the Spanish Grand Prix for the Schumi Carrera. I hope you have enjoyed it. I most certainly have. Do make sure to leave a like down below if you did enjoy. And I'll catch you guys in my next video. Do take care. Bye-bye.